And so I'll call the meeting to order.
Okay, roll call, Andy,
Here.
Heath, here. I am, Cheryl.
Here.
Alice,
Here.
and Rod, with that.
Yeah, so first of all, I wanted everybody to know that this is the beginnings of a new egalitarian response to people who are morning people. We watched some folks drifting off during the evening meetings, and so we thought that acknowledging the fact that some people work a lot better in the morning would be a way to do this. It's also for another reason. So what I wanted to tell you all is that you have so far 5, soon to have 6 people in front of you who really care about Leilani Estates. We may not get everything right, but the fact that these folks care is absolutely without question. And so to acknowledge that, I created a gift for the board. And so the first of the gifts is for Alice Linda.
Coffee.
And the second is for Cheryl Kell. The third is for Heath Dalton.
Get it, a jail card's free.
The next one is for Robert Dalton.
If only you had that power.
Rod's walking up. But what I wanted to tell you what these symbolize our desire to be easily reached by all of you. So these cards are available to all of you. To all of you. We've all given easy contact emails and easy contact phone numbers, and we want you to know that this board intends to operate at a level of transparency that is not only required by the state of Hawaii as per 421J, which, if you don't know, is the statute that regulates homeowners associations, but also we intend in every opportunity to go above and beyond that to be able to make certain that the needs that are being expressed by the community are being heard loud and clear by the board. So I'm proud to serve on this board with these other 5 folks, and proud to represent Leilani Estates. We intend to take our charge quite seriously in terms of making absolutely certain that we are always acting in the interest of the community. Thanks.
Thanks, Andy.
First agenda item. Oh, yeah, okay, so the next portion of the meeting, without any time constraints, will be open to any of you who want to make a remark. We're going to ask you to limit it to 3 minutes, and we also ask, for the purpose of the record, that you identify yourself by name, and if you want to give the street you live on, that would be great to help us. Our goal is to get answers back to you. If there are questions involved, to get answers back to you in a timely manner. Some questions the answers are more complicated than others, and so we're going to try to answer them essentially as soon as we have the answer to them. And if you would like to receive a personal response to your question, let us know that after the meeting, and we'll record your contact information. So we'd like to start.
I'm going to read a pair of remarks by Tiffany Hunt. She asked me to read these remarks, and I'm speaking them as a resident and as a board member. Here. My apologies for not being able to personally attend your Leilani Community Association. I refer to most people on the aisle when I make the following statement. Alas, I am traveling, so this written correspondence will have to suffice. Please, a number of years ago, after the death of our decorated veteran father, Captain David R. Warpaint Edwards, my older brother, David, commonly known as Mac Edwards, and I observed the way the rest of our family reacted in terms of divvying up the possessions and property and we both made a conscious decision to disengage. Together we made a pact that our relationship was more important than who got what, and we decided to buy a piece of property together as a symbol of our bond and a commitment to preserving our family lineage on our father's side. We found a symbolic property in the United States, and we named it Kavika Hale, as a hat tip to our late father. In the course of our grieving, my Ohana spent countless hours planting trees and otherwise investing sweat equity into that property. Fast forward to 2018 Kilauea lava flow, and miraculously, Kavika Hale survived. I say miraculously because I don't know how else to explain it, when all other properties around it were inundated. I say miraculously, and I conjure up an image of my badass fighter father, Warpen, keeping watch over my brother and me. And it is with an image in mind that I write this letter to you now, urging you to dump the agendized proposal to barricade the Milano Street terminus. Here is why. My Ohana has been investing time and money to establish a driveway at the end of Milano Street to the backside of Kavika Hale. We have been collaborating with other area neighbors who have their own backstories and motivation for returning home. The collaboration has been extensive and an impressive example of neighbors helping neighbors. I now have reached out to the Leilani State's Community Association attorney to see if my family and surrounding neighbors are within our right to create this driveway. I also know that your attorney has shared with you that we are, especially since my brother has pursued a grubbing permit with the County of Hawaii. What's appalling me is that there are still people trying to create obstacles to my family. I've said this privately, and I will put this on record here now. Do these people not know what it must feel like to be wanting to get home, and how difficult it must be to have a walk over lava to access that home? In the weeks and months that followed the devastating Kilauea lava flow, we saw so many examples of our community working together to comfort and support each other. We see our own neighbors being hateful and objecting to us accessing our property so contrary to the spirit of the law. And to those people who refuse to subscribe to the Hawaiian values, I ask, are you not even American? In America, we subscribe to the principle of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, which includes the right to privately own property and objects to any effort to trample over those private property rights. I wonder, are these people who are attempting to block my family from accessing our family property ready and willing to buy us out? Stand in the way of our honest attempt to access Kavika Hale with our own funds without any handouts is grossly un-American, just as it is the antithesis of the law. I ask the Leilani State's Community Association to respect your attorney's already stated opinion and not put any more barricades to my family than actually already did, than nature already did. Let us pull ourselves up by our own bootstraps and always have. Let us get back to Kavika Hale where we can continue to honor our family bond and our father's legacy. To open your hearts and put yourselves in our boots. Maybe head over to the local nursery and put your energy into your own property. Feeling blessed that you have easy access to be able to rest your weary heads each night. As frustrated and angry as I am with your perceived hatefulness and inability to empathize with others, we do not have it so easy at home. Take a deep breath and say, "Lord, sincerely, Tiffany Abraham."
Yeah.
Okay, any other, okay, so how about on the back also?
Yeah. I'm one of the other entities involved with what
State your name.
My name is Nicolette Dubris. I'm here representing my family's organic farm that's 20 acres, this is where Provide Creators, here's Leilani, we are right here. That's the top of our 20 acres. It goes down here. Our normal access was off of Pohoiki Road. As you guys all know, Pohoiki is gone. I've been working with the county for over the last year trying to get Pohoiki together again. They still don't know when that's going to happen. What the county suggested is that I go to the Milano Street and work on private people's property to provide a temporary access so we can get back there. I spoke with Keith and Chris Burmeister at the time, who was on the board, and talked to them about this to let them know what's going on, just so we can be transparent about everything. He told me that everything's cool as long as we put a gate there, because the main concern is that we don't want a lot of traffic. They don't want I think a lot of people's concern is that that's going to be a road to Pohoiki, which I'm here to clarify that is not a road to Pohoiki. It's gonna be a private road, only for temporary use, only for certain people that live back there. So yeah, there's gonna be a gate, at the end of Leilani Street, we do it. It's gonna be limited access, only certain people can go through there. It will be helping my family, which is a family of 6, and we have a farm back there. Matt here, his girlfriend. There's also Robert Gochi, who's a 75-year-old man that's been living in there. He has to hike out an hour like I've been hiking in order to come out and get supplies. Ever since he was back in last year, he has no other options. So that'll be helping him get road access as well. He's very stressed and living in there, you can imagine. This is not, just so everybody knows, this is not my ideal way to get in. There's going to be 3 gates I'm going to have to go through to get to my property. That means every time I want to go in, I have to go in and out of the car 6 times. When I want to go to Cahoe or out, I have to get in and out of the car 12 times. So it's not ideal for me either, but this is the only option I have right now. Otherwise, it's walking an hour through the thick jungle, which gets, you guys know what it's like here, it gets crazy and crazier. So not only to maintain the farm, I've been having to try to deal with that trail, lots of razor grass. As you can see, I get cut up all the time. It's very frustrating. The family itself has been displaced during this. My parents were in India dealing with my dad's health issues, getting 3 major surgeries when he was recovering. The lava came and a fire that the lava that filled in Hawaii crater burned down their house. So they lost their home, lost road access, so they decided to stay in a third world country where it's cheaper and affordable for them until they can get a road home. So I'm here dealing with my job as well as trying to deal with the county and everything else to get a road so we can simply get back. In the meantime, I also have to do the maintenance of the farm by myself, trying to get people to help me, but it's difficult even when you pay them a lot of money. It's complicated, people aren't into it. So my main goal is to get my family back together, to get the farm, which is our income, our residence, and everything running again. It's agricultural land, so we used to sell to the markets, nachos, all that. We can't do that. Our produce is rotting, and food prices are going more expensive because we can't get back to our lands to get them out and everything. The county has, I've been working with them. I love them, they're great, but they're a little bit slow on things. And they've sent me through so many hoops and do this, do that, do that. I've done all of them. I've got all the work permits, I got surveys, I got everything. We're just waiting for the work permits to be processed right now and some more things to go through, and then we can start the project. And yeah, just the end is that we've all been affected by this eruption. It's been very stressful. I've been here, I helped my friends evacuate from Leilani, I evacuated all my family and stuff. I was here, I was lucky enough to get access in when there was borders up and nobody else could get in, which was National Guard and media. I was able to come in, take pictures, help people evacuate stuff, give people notifications that their houses were gone, they weren't. I was helping the community and part of the community, even though I'm not necessarily part of the Leilani Association. But you know, we've all been gone through this, and there's people like myself and my family that are still being affected like this very seriously, that we just want to go home and have a road so we can start the even bigger process of taking care of what's there right now. And like I mentioned to Heath and other people, we'd be glad we pay Leilani Association fees to, if that's what's needed, to know that we want to pay for roads, maintenance, and be supportive of the community and everything, and whatever else is needed. And yeah, I just wanted to provide transparency because I know there's a lot of questions, there's a lot of rumors about what's happening. A lot of people thought the road was going to Kamwiki. It's not. We gave on it, it's a certain amount of people, and we go through it. And if you guys have any other questions, please talk to me because I want everybody to know what's going on and not be confused with rumors to spread. And yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Who would like to speak next?
Yeah, Jay Dragowski. They're approached a time or two by your area there. I've also heard some reports of bad neighbors, I think, on Malama. And I'm of the opinion that, yes, Leilani needs to support its neighbors. Being a good neighbor is as important in life as being an asshole. Pardon the language. We do have a couple of the latter down there. One individual has been hit with a restraining order, which was pulled ultimately, but we're going to have problems ongoing. It's really outside of allowing use of our streets, which we do to Section 1 people. the upper end, there's no reason we can't do it on the lower end. We're not talking about 5,000 people accessing it, it's a few families. It is their livelihood, and they can't get to it, and no insurance policies are paying them lost wages either. So my thinking is, yes, we need to support these folks. They're going to take care of their own security. We can go on the road. Thank you.
Thanks, Jen.
My name is Petra Lusenbauer. I used to live on Nakamai Street, 2 acres of lava land. And I am a member, obviously, of this association, and I would like to express my support for the families. It's very hard when you lose everything. And I feel we have a moral obligation to support them to get home. And I feel we need to find a way where we can come to an agreement with whoever is, affected by this, the end of Malama Street, where we show openness, okay, to make it work for them to get home. And I would like to ask the board to possibly help facilitate an agreement between the parties, so everybody can get on the table and really look at, I know there's concerns, but I feel everything can be addressed. And that's what we should try to do. That everybody is willing to work on a solution, because these guys need to be able to go home. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, aloha. My name is Smiley Burrows, and I've been a resident on Kula Street for 14 years. I also lost 3 homes, our new home in the farm lots. I take care of Green Mountain. We own Green Mountain, which is a kapuka. We cannot get to our mountain, but our home was not there. I've spent the last year fighting for these guys. And anybody that has lost a home, it is unfathomable to imagine. But to actually have not lost a home and to not be able to get to your home is beyond torture. So every single kapuka that I have been studying is my goal to get everybody home. I've been working with Nicolette and Jay with Imua Lower Puna to get these kapukas open and to get the roads reestablished. And personally, I had a lot of issues with 132 with people in Wawa and Papaya Farms Road that didn't want 4 corners open because of conflicts that potentially tourists might come down to Kapoho again. Meanwhile, I have families, in fact, Deb and Stan Smith, my dear neighbors from Kapoho, rent the last house down on Malama Street, and they have been I've been very involved with the situation with the neighbors that have had minuscule problems in the circumstances, that still own homes, that have had no problem having access home. And it's just disheartening that these people are challenging these wonderful people. The people that I know in this particular kapuka are incredible. And yes, they need to go home, they need to farm. It's just kind of a no-brainer to me to have aloha. And basically that dead-end road down on the end of Malama Street, it is not going to impact these people. Once these people have a road through, the people that live down there, they're probably just gonna love these people that are their neighbors. So I think it's really, really important to support this group of people and honor the aspect of what the trauma that they're actually experiencing versus a few people that don't want to extend a road past their house that they can go every day, cook and clean and sleep and have beautiful ocean views. So, let's get real, folks. Let's help these people out. It's what neighbors do. Thank you.
Does anybody else want to make a statement?
I do.
So, Maya, hang on. I'm not sure what's gonna happen down here, but we have 6 homes in our own Kapuka.
Yes.
If they were granted access here, would they allow us access through there to that Kapuka?
Are you asking if the people of that kabuka would grant you guys access to your kabuka?
Correct, from that.
I think, I can't imagine not.
Hey, Rod, we have that as an agenda item further down the agenda. Is it okay?
I will push in every way, shape, or form to get everybody home in whatever means it is. I mean, I'm seeing a lot of roads opening down in the Malamaki, Pohiki area that aren't county permitted. And I support everybody that actually can get back home. And so I know these guys are great. I think they would absolutely work with your kapuka and keep me informed because, you know, until everybody gets home, I'm not going to quit because that's what we do here. Yeah.
Are there any other, thanks, Mara. Are there any other comments anybody wants to make? Okay.
You can ask me later about properties, I can see if it connects the roads we're doing. Or whatever.
We're only letting each person speak again after everybody has spoken once. Thank you.
I'll try and keep it 3 minutes. I had to rewrite it because 3 minutes is not very long. My name is Mary Ann. A little different issues than you've been hearing about. And I live on Olive Street. And I love where I live. I'm one of the fortunate ones that still have a home. After the eruption last year, I went to an LCA meeting in September to see how the board was responding to the crisis and what I could do. I had many concerns then, and I still do. The first is about the proposing of gating our community. At that meeting, Andy reported the costs of for the cost of the gate on Leilani Avenue. I was floored. I'd already been annoyed with having to report in at the checkpoint and couldn't wait for that to go away. I feel for those folks who are directly affected by visitors, and while serving on the gate committee, I suggested many options for solving the problem of residents in close proximity to the flow without the great expense of the gate. Not what the board wanted, they wanted a gate. So they spent a great deal of money, former board, on a lawsuit against the county, trying to force the county to do what they wanted, despite the fact it was proven that legally neither Leilani Avenue nor the roads linking section 1 and 2 can ever be gated. This is a waste of time and energy, in my opinion, when there's so many other problems in need of achievable solutions. My second concern is about the disparagement of Conroy as chair of a CCNR committee and the oath required by Andy of the board members. She was designated chair of the CCNR committee, of which I was a member, and immediately started very productive meetings to solve problems. When she declined to sign the oath because it was not in alignment with her value system, her committee was squashed, and the committee charter was denied along with the work we had already accomplished. She was chastised because of our association with, in parentheses, any separate group of homeowners, number 5 of the oath. Clearly, these slights against Kahanoi were because of our connection to concerned homeowners of Leilani. I'm not sure why you're afraid of our group. We are neighbors coming together to have open discussion, trying to identify and solve problems in a way that we all feel like neighbors, not enemies. I feel ostracized and from the process of participating in the future of Leilani. Please do not continue to kill the efforts and momentum of willing volunteers to be on the board and on committees. My next concern is about the speed humps on my lake, and I'm thrilled with all the work Alice has done and the neighbors in improving their street. But paying for the speed humps is very generous, if we can afford it, but also kind of a slippery slope in showing a bit of favoritism that is permeating the history of the board's policies of selective enforcement of the CCNRs and changing what the family documents actually say. In my opinion, the lava-affected area is where help is needed the most. And finally, I'm disappointed that neither the former board nor the present board have been able to resolve the Dinge lawsuit. If they actually read it, they would have accepted the clear, simple facts that the case before they won up, and they wasted thousands of dollars of our monies on attorney fees. This lawsuit will be won. And my hopes in all of this, ultimately, is that we find unity in all of Leilani, that we all drive in Leilani Avenue, both sections. I'm thankful for freedom of speech, the opportunity to listen, learn, and change. Power to the people.
Are there anybody else?
My name is Mick Calvert. I live in Toronto. We're some of the lucky ones. Lava came within 500 feet of our property, but never got there, remarkably enough. My heart goes out to all those people who have lost everything. It's just beyond pale. I watched it from the air every day and documented it, and it was just heart-wrenching. I have friends down in Kipuka in question, and it's just like Smiley said, it's a no-brainer to let people go home. This isn't a permanent thing, this isn't a forever thing, this isn't an access to other places operation, this is just letting people go back to their houses. Anybody that knows the people down there, who I'm very close to, knows that they're good people, their hearts are in the right place. They're not trying to make this a tourist area or give access to people through Moama. That's ridiculous. So, we need to let this happen. We need to open up our hearts and let people go home. That's all I got. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Mac Edwards. My friend told me my house is the last house on Leilani Avenue. When I drive down Leilani Avenue, I see the barricade again, and I think back to when it was just another minute to get home, over a couple hills, around the corner, and through my gate. It's been a year that I've been homeless. I don't know how it survived, but it did. I remember, and maybe some of you guys do too, when there were other barricades, and we couldn't get home, and we couldn't understand why. And we had meetings, and we fought. We fought the government, we fought the mayor. I'd like you, if you experience that, to remember the relief you felt when you were able to go home. To be able to open the door and make what you wanted for dinner, to go to sleep, to wake up, to take care of your Ina. I happen to have some friends that have aerial photographs. I studied them. I looked at all the options. I talked to the county. I talked to anybody that would listen, and determined that the end of Moama Street, via a very nice gentleman that's granted us access across his property that's entirely covered with lava, is the path of least resistance. I want to make it extremely clear. It irritates me when people say, this is a road. This is a road to Pohoiki. Oh, the county's going to come in and they're going to put Pohoiki back in, and then the end of Moama is going to become the only way to get to Pohoiki. We're talking about a private gentleman's property, and he's gracious enough to allow us access to our properties via his. I have a document here that's part of the permitting process, and in it, the county refers to it as a driveway access to properties. We tried to just do it. That was based on everybody saying, hey, everybody does it in Puna. It's private property, you can bulldoze. When's the last time anybody pulled a permit to bulldoze? The people at the end of Moama said, no, you can't do that unless you do it correctly. We went, we applied for permits, we talked to the county. And in fact, your lawyer advised me to call the county. When I called the county, I said, yeah, I wanted to inquire about doing a project at the end of Moama. Oh, the Moama project. Download these documents, come down, talk to us. We went out there and shot 700 points to determine the best route in. There's never been any ulterior motive other than to make an access driveway temporarily until some other option happens. It isn't it isn't our best case scenario. I'll have to go through 2 gates. I've assured the private property owner that we'll put cameras up on his place, because we can't watch it 24/7, but he has some structures there and he's been looted. You know, I just want to go home. I just want to go home. I want to mow the lawn. I want to grow some tomatoes. I want to plant some ohia trees. You know, I envision driving to the end of Malama Street. There's a locked gate. Maybe we plant some plants there, see how they grow in the next, I hope, year or so. Go through the gate, close it, and lock it. I've been down there quite a bit, and you know, unlike the end of Leilani Street here, I don't see a lot of tourist traffic. You know, if we have to put signs on a private road, dead end, whatever it might be, we'll do it. I just, you know, I'm a resident of Leilani, obviously. Maybe you guys have had some experience of, you know, what are you going to do with Leilani Avenue? But I don't think the county wants to put it back in. You go right over the mouth of Fisher 8, the Kapuka on Cognac Street. Even if we can bulldoze to there, I'd have to get permission from the county to re-bulldoze Leilani Avenue, which they already told us at the end of Rinaldo Street, we can't touch it because it may affect their ability to get federal funding to restore the roads. So, you know, Nicolette mentioned earlier, the county told us your best option to get home in the next 2 to 3 years is to use the end of Malama Street. Once again, it's temporary access. It's a driveway. Drive past people's gates all day long. That's what it would be when you ended up at the end of Malama. There'd just be one more gate there. You know, we're not envisioning 50 people, 100 people. We're envisioning more like 10 at the most. I leave, I go to work, I come home. My girlfriend Dee Dee works from home. Amazingly enough, we can get high-speed internet. I have the solar panels on my house. I collect my rainwater. My cesspool is still functional. Just please don't say no. Let us go home. I want to feel like a part of this community. When I first came back in here and I looked at the map, I thought, am I even part of Leilani Estates? I still was looking at my dues. I'm like, heck, man, if it helps, I'll pay my dues. It was voluntary. I'm like, oh, heck, man, I want to feel a part of. I don't want to feel ostracized. It's just, it's incredible to me. This is a natural disaster. I don't want to be here. I don't want to take up any more of your time. I appreciate the time that you've given to this. But it's real simple. Just, you know, let us go home temporarily, and let's move on with life. Let's get through this. Let's heal. I want to feel the same thing that you felt when that mandatory evacuation barricade came down. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Get back home.
Anybody else want to speak on it? Go ahead.
I'm Patty Knapp. I live on Alapai Street, and I have a lot of friends that live at the end of Malama, and I am very sympathetic with the situation down there because I know that it's always been a dead end. And the way I'm looking at it, I also have friends, Mac and Dee Dee, and some other people that are trying to get home, and there's been a lot of changes here, and I just feel, in my opinion, that if there's a way we can help them out to get home, that we should. I mean, things change. I mean, if there was lava covering his house, it wouldn't be an issue, but if that's the course of least resistance, I feel like it's worth, a few more cars a day to the people that live down there, and to open it up for them so that they can get back to their home. And I know one person in particular that's been the biggest problem down there of letting anyone go by would already have a road if his house were down there. He would already be in there. So I just think it's really thanks.
Thanks, Patty.
Anybody else want to speak? Okay, so to the board, I propose, because of the number of comments on that subject, why don't we move that subject to the very next agenda item, move it up the agenda. So the agenda item, exactly as it's written on the agenda, reads Lower Malama Terminus, public safety and request to place guardrail barrier at the lower end of Malama Street. It was submitted to the board by Mark Figley, and and the conversation really isn't specific to any board members, but all after it. So I'll start giving a little bit of background. First of all, I learned a lot already this morning, a lot of factual information that I was not aware of. I was requested by 5 of the owners who do live at the end of Malama to go down and meet with them so that they could express their concerns. And what I asked of them, well, let me start out with one thing in particular. The person who a lot of you were referencing as having made some trouble down there, his name is Tom Tugwell. And he reached out to me, and I had a very good conversation with him. I'll start right out by saying that his sentiment was that if it was being used for relief back to people's homes on a temporary gated basis, he was absolutely supportive of it. There's nobody down there who didn't feel that way that I spoke with. I didn't speak to everyone by any means. The concern was not that. The concern was the lack of dialogue. The concern was that actions were going forward that they were concerned might have profound effects on them, such as the rumors about the road being open to Palawiki, the road being open for tourism, the road being open for just exploration of the area. And what their concern was that the folks, and many of you are out there right now, who wanted to do that hadn't made any contact with them. And so what I feel like was going on was 2 groups of people who were amazingly close to the same sentiment who just weren't speaking to each other. One thing that was very troublesome to them was the fact that the grubbing permit had been pulled as a county and that none of them had been brought into the dialogue. So I asked them if they would be willing to reopen that dialogue, or to open for the first time that dialogue. To a person, they said absolutely, but we don't know who to talk to. We don't know who's, hang on a minute. We don't know who's running the show. We don't know who's doing what. It doesn't seem to be a cohesive group. So my suggestion would be is that we create that cohesive group, that the people who want to get back to their homes and the people who have concerns about that process meet with each other. And I also proposed that the LCA board, at the end of an agreement that's made by all the concerned parties, which would be the people who own land either in or not within Leilani Estates, and the people at the end of Malama, when they're able to work out an agreement. And I, based on the conversations I had with those folks, I think an agreement is very possible. And then I propose that the LCA board have the LCA attorney draw up a legal agreement so there's no ambiguity about it, and that all the concerned parties sign that. One of the things I did express to the members down there was, they said, well, who will enforce it? And in talking it over with some legal advice, I was told, it's really not enforceable. It'll be a civil agreement. If the agreement's broken, one group would have to sue the other and take them to court. And that's obviously not the object of the exercise. Nor would the police come in and enforce such a civil agreement. So I propose that those of you who have so eloquently expressed the need and desire and correctness of people going back to their homes, get together with the people who have that concern and in a true spirit of community, have that conversation, work something out amongst yourselves, and then bring that back as a unified proposal to the board. So are we going to take comments again over the topic? What I would go ahead.
Well, so do you want to make a motion or us to?
Yeah, thank you. All right. Does anybody else want to speak?
I'll say something regarding the grubbing permit. I mean, it's private property. Why would they contact anybody? Would you contact your neighbor when you built your place? No.
Well, what the concern was that it's going to grub about 150 feet of the Malama Avenue, and it appears that we would have to give the okay for that first 150 feet or so, to be clear. So that's the reason. That's the reason we're there.
Two things. One, it's the right thing to do, but two, legal precedents already been set. We've granted access to somebody outside of Leilani Cabana for 30 plus years. So if we try to block that now, there's going to be legal ramifications. But I mean, so that's one thing that mainly it's the right thing to do, and it is private property. So I mean, that's my take on it, my opinion.
Oh, I'm sorry, before you guys speak, I did want to make everybody clear that that agenda item was put on by a resident, not by the board. I hope you all understand that.
No, they didn't. I can tell by things they were saying. I'm going to say something about that.
Yeah. And also I might say that if you do have a statement that's going to exceed by a lot 3 minutes, you can always submit that statement ahead of time to the board, and we will include it into the agenda of the meeting. So anyway, who else?
I'd like a little clarification on how long the road needs to be and what the nature of it is, since this is a new, just to get a sense of how much resource is going to have to be put into that road. And go ahead.
Hi, Mac Edwards again. It's basically a bulldozer's width wide. 20 feet is what we've been told. We can provide you with the actual topographic map. It covers 1.8 acres. It's entirely, at least our section of it is entirely across one property owner's property. It forks off in order to provide him access back home. Providing me access to the back of this property that butted up against Leilani Estates, and the third fork to join the old road that was part of the end of an Olive Street that went up to the water. I can speak really quickly to the other Kapuka. Unless we get private property permission or the county to let us re-bulldoze Leilani Avenue, there's no way to connect those two Kapukas. Depending on the people at the end of Malama Street, I know that people have been parking there and accessing that Kapuka because the hike is way easier for them. I have no problem letting them get home or maintain their homes until there's another solution for that. As to the people at the end of Malama, I happen to have a couple of their phone numbers in here. I've sent emails to them during the beginning of this process. As to the gentleman, Tom Tugwell, I don't want to go into the phone conversation, but it was one of the rudest ones I've ever had. No matter which way I went, he said, "Ain't happening, bud," and a whole bunch more expletives until the point where he hung up on me. You know, I'm physically sick right now because the more energy that I put into this, the more like just bad juju, just people, and I just don't understand it. I just want to go home. I'm more than willing to talk to those residents. I did try to reach out to them. In fact, some of the emails I sent were reprinted and distributed to the people down there, and they opened them up and said, "Well, I got this map." I said, "Where'd you get that map?" "Oh, I got it from so-and-so." Well, that's my map. Dee Dee drew that map. So there was some communication, but the communication was negative. And so, you know, since it is private property, I said, why beat my head against the wall? I hope you guys do what's right. Thank you for your time again.
Could you tell me the length of the road?
Oh, it's 1,925 feet.
So that's all it would take to get
That's all it'll take. Monetary wise, for that section, it's $15,000 that we're paying out of our own pocket.
There's no cost to Leilani.
Alice, could I, Heath is right. Our only concern is the tiny bit that it crosses over Leilani Estates and simply permitting it to exist without being barricaded.
Right.
So, and I'm not hearing from anybody that any funding is being asked for the LCA, and so at the end of the day, the actual, once they're off LCA property, really isn't an idea.
I was just trying to get a sense of how big the project was, how hard the project was.
And is the gate on Leilani property or off?
No, it would be on Raj's property because obviously we don't have the, we don't have the legal right to put a gate on Leilani property. So, I mean, we'll work with the LCA, whatever they want. If you decide that there needs to be a gate right there at the end, we'll put a gate right there in the end.
Does anybody else on the board have any comments? Okay, so I make a motion that the LCA formally sanction the formation of a committee that will consist of the residents at the end of Malama who expressed concern, and all of the involved parties who want to have the right, too strong a word, just simply the opportunity to get back to their home. I also propose that I'm willing to mediate that committee to avoid unnecessary animosity from the past getting in the way of a resolution. And so I make a motion that the board participate in a informal de facto committee to resolve that situation.
Second.
Okay, the board voting on that? By a show of hands? Oh, all right, is there any discussion of the motion?
Yeah, rather just make a motion to grant them access to the 150 feet and let them move forward with some, maybe they need to crowd it at the level, but
I think, in all fairness, I think what we would be doing is, people have expressed a different sentiment, and I think that it's reasonable that we at least honor their concern.
I mean, we can, but we're still, you have legal precedence has already been set.
Correct.
And we have legal advice based on it, that's my.
So I'd like to say, I think this is a great opportunity to show how we can deal with differences. And that I personally am supporting people to getting back home. I agree with what Heath just said. But I honestly like to see there are people who feel differently. And I just really believe in getting people together, having a conversation, coming to some kind of peaceful resolution that Andy will mediate. It's a great principle for dealing with conflict in our community. That we have a process, that we can have a conversation, and we can follow up, and we can move on. That's why I support it.
Keith, would you feel if we, in addition, took a vote on the general sentiment about the idea that people have a right to go back to their homes? If we did that as an addendum? Okay, so I'll, go ahead, Rod.
Just be aware, Mark Bigley's not here. His concern is that the roadway be the level it was to the end of Malama, so that when he accesses his property, he can come right up to it, not have extra work.
Have Mark Bigley call me. He has my email. We'll work with him however he wants, whatever works with you guys. You know?
Very agreeable, big guy. So.
Yeah.
Well, one thing that, I'll get you. The three salient points that were presented to me by the homeowners at the end of the street, one of them was what Rod just expressed, specifically by Mark Bigley. That looked like a piece of cake.
Yeah.
No deal at all. The second was the fact that there be a gate, and already several of you have said, yes, we're absolutely supportive of that solution. And the third is, which hasn't been addressed today, but it should be when we get together, is that if the situation were to begun to be abused in that the access through the gate were somehow to be broadcast to lots of people who don't deserve it, what would be the process of dealing with that going forward?
I'd like to say again that our farm has been robbed multiple times, as our neighbors. We're just as concerned about security as everybody else is. So as far as that goes, like there's gates, and we don't want people going back there. It's not an open road. I feel the same way. Like we don't want people to pass that gate. I'm saying with Mark Bigley, I don't want people going there. So as far as like that is, like it's not an open road. That's why it's private. That's why only certain people have the keys. That's why only certain people can go through there. I'm not going to be going in and out because it's frustrating. I'm just going to be in there working, and when I have to come out, I'll come out. So that's the most practical key. It's not an open for anybody. It's not open for anybody.
I'm listening to your
name,
Steve Sparks. I live on Malama Creek. I live on the upper part though. Your motion is great, but you need to have time frame. This needs to be done the next week or the next 10 days, or, you understand? You can't just form a committee. That can take years. You need to get a time frame on your committee to have your thing done, or you're not gonna get it done.
Right.
You know, and you need to specify how many people need to be on this committee. A minimum of 3?
No, it isn't going to be a committee. It's all, my proposal is it would only be comprised of the concerned parties, which is.
Okay, that's fine. That needs to be in there though.
Yeah.
It needs to be in your minutes, and it needs to have a time.
And I'm also, by the way, to the board, I'm not at all proposing we form a board committee or any official Leilani Community Association group, that we simply act as the mediator for the people who express concerns on both sides of the picture. I will say that my absolute feeling was that the sentiment of the people at the bottom of Malama was, as long as we know what's going on, we're okay with it. That was the big concern, was that there was a lot of lack of clarity about what was going on. So why don't we discuss?
Hold on, Matt, Nicola, what's your guys' timeline? I know you said you applied for the funding.
Work permits and funding should have answers by mid next week. And
So
also,
we need to have something by the end of next
and
week.
also for the clarification, like when I started doing this months ago, I came to Leilani Association and I talked to them about this. I was talking to Keith and Chris Burmeister, who was the head at the time. So I told them I want to be transparent. So I thought they let everyone know so that there won't be questions, but so I'm here to let you guys know that it is transparent. Anything you want to know, please ask. You know, my phone number.
Somehow that broke down and let's get it.
Yeah, I just
back
want
up
everyone to
again.
know, like, we're here to be talking to everyone, trying to do it.
Okay, and so speaking to Michael's point, why don't we add to that the meeting will take place at the absolute outside, I'm sorry, Steve Sparks, at the absolute outside within 1 week.
Yeah.
Okay. And
Yeah, Jay Kirkowski again. I'd like to, go for it.
Pam Andrews, I live on Common High Street. I really want to make a statement in support of this, not a committee, but a hearing, because I think it's really important that the folks that don't want this access, the people we've been talking about, Tom Tugwell, Mark Figley, that they get included and respected. They're not here, really unfortunate, or maybe be better in a smaller hearing. But all of you folks who, and I sympathize with this, I'll say I'm pretty neutral on this because I want to recognize that there's people who move to Malama Street to have an absolute private bed on the street. And I don't think it's a slam dunk or really obvious that it should be open. I understand the feeling of aloha and totally understand that people want to get back to their homes, but we have to respect people who've lived there a long time and chose to live there because of the way their road existed. So having a hearing where everybody gets to state their piece and they get respected, absolutely don't get any names called at them. They get honored for what they wanted in their life here, and then hopefully something really good will get worked out and everybody will feel, if not completely happy, but satisfied that we've done the best, we've made the best choice. So I, once again, support that hearing with the Indiana's honor.
Our streets are owned by all of us. Each one of us owns 1/2046 of all of our streets. I understand the people down there at the end of Malama wanting to call that their street because it's dead end and that's why they moved there and everything. However, every one of us has the right to be down there on that street just as much as they do. So what this boils down to then is a decision by LCA, not the homeowners, to allow access off of the end of Malama to the Lonnie Luna farmlands.
How about to a Leilani resident?
That too. Therefore, yeah, we can have a group meeting and discuss, and that's fine. Still, we've had more people already testify in favor at this meeting than there are living down there. So what's the issue? We're gonna play a game too long? No, listen, these guys gotta get there. They're getting ripped off, the houses are deteriorating, they're not making their farm money.
I know this will be a very informal way of asking it,
Yeah.
but for all of you who spoke so wonderfully about the reasonableness of being able to get back to your homes, are you okay with meeting with those residents and working out some kind of a resolution that feels like it's respected those people's feelings?
I would love to have some type of mediator because honestly, you know, I tried. And, you know, when I met with resistance, I didn't want to keep fighting. You know, that's what I was met with, you know, logic broke down.
I agree with what he's saying. We've talked to everybody, the residents that we know in the area. There's been one person in particular, Thomas Tugwell, who's been not able to talk to a lot of the times, and that seems to be our issue. If you guys are willing to mediate while we communicate with him, super happy about that. That would be excellent.
Mick Calver with Tripona. I've heard a lot of salient points here. I think a lot of you guys that, you know, really spot on. When we moved to Leilani, we didn't expect to have lava 500 feet from our property. Either things change, you know. But I have one question. I form a committee is fine. I don't have any problem with that. But
Nick, let's take the word committee out of it. Just
okay, forming a group to discuss this is fine. But I have one question. Where are the people? Why aren't the people who are against this here? Where are they? Why don't they have a representative here if they can't be here?
We did receive written statements from 4 of those people that they were, most of them were distributed to the board. The others I have with me today. None, if you want, I'll read them all. Some of them are quite lengthy, but none of them express an absolute unwillingness to come to a compromise solution. So again, I think Nick's point is really important. None of us expected. You know, we can start thousands of sentences now with the 2 words. None of us, 3 words, 4 words. None of us expected. And so we're breaking. We're going where no board has ever had to go before. And so I agree completely with Robert. The open discussion about these issues is going to leave people feeling like a resolution was arrived at that honored the concerns and the wishes of everyone, whether you live in Leilani Estates or not. And so I'd like to again, let's see, we have to put some amendments to it. So again, that we mediate, or that we work with a group of all concerned, and I agree with Jay, all concerned really at the end of the day could be anyone, that we absolutely set a goal that will take place within the next week, and honoring what Pam said, that we work very hard to stay away from just continuing to fuel the fire here and start working towards a real resolution so people can go back to their homes.
So I'll call the question.
Go ahead.
All right, so the motion is to be correct this wording. So what I have down is the LCA to sanction a de facto agreement with all involved parties regarding access beyond Lower Leilani Street, and will mediate this ad hoc group. The group will be formed by next week.
I have something, I think I'm really the only person here who lives on the Golden Home. I'm Tom Tugwell's next door neighbor. I personally support the people in the home, but I understand I've lived there on the Long Street for 30 years. I understand how precious it's been to be a dead-end street and all of that, and the concerns about it opening up to a lot more people and that kind of thing. I understand the concern, and I'm glad that we're going to address them all as a group.
Good.
Thank you.
Just for the record, give us your name.
Marita Buckley, Long Street.
Just as a suggestion, Daryl Singleton on Nahea, I think it'd be a good idea for all the private property owners who have agreed to Leilani to cross your property, that you have agreements in writing that you could bring to the discussion.
Okay, so Robert's raised a question. If any other board member have anything they'd like to comment about the motion?
We didn't set a forum next week. I'd like a meeting next week, so we get this
Oh,
knocked out.
no, absolutely. A meeting within the week.
Okay, that's not what it was.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah. Okay, so by a show of hands, or a second, okay, by a show of hands to support the motion. Okay, so the motion, so the motion passes unanimously. So what I would like to ask those of you who are in any way feel like that you want to call yourself those involved, that we meet after this meeting and set up a meeting, hopefully very quickly, to set these wheels in motion. Our goal was to have the open portion of this meeting be 1 hour. It's an obvious example of goals and reality clashing. I make a motion that we suspend the executive portion of the meeting, continue with the public portion of the meeting, and then do a separate, maybe before the meeting on Thursday, we do the executive portion of the meeting. Is that okay with the other board members? Steve, is that okay with you?
I wanted to do the executive because there's some things I want to bring up.
Okay, are you willing to hang for that?
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe we'll abridge the executive to the ones that we feel are the most pressing, and then, yeah, okay, so, the next, agenda item is the permission request letter from the tour company. The board of directors received a formal request letter from a tour company to conduct tours within Leilani Estates. I know other folks have really clear feelings about that, so why don't you guys start that one?
I mean, my family's not an email. There's no possible way of seeing Fisher 8 without trespassing the private property. It's a hindrance. They're going to be parking on the road out, so I'm 100% against it.
Okay. Anybody else?
Same here. Trespassing, liability issues. A lot of the people who still own property out there, whether they live there or not, they have no liability insurance whatsoever. And if anyone gets hurt and they sue someone, they're not only going to sue the property owner, they're going to sue the LCA too, because the LCA is the deed pockets. So it's just not a good idea at all in any way for me.
I just have a question. I hadn't seen that letter. I apologize for that. I just want to know what did the tour company say? How are they planning on?
They wanted permission to come in to see Fisher 8 for 15 minutes.
Right. So exactly, what does that mean? All right. So does that mean they're going to see it from the van? Are they going to say? They want to walk out on the wall? I think that.
Well, we had the letter for a week, and so we should, and so.
I mean, even if there's, for me personally, even if they're just seeing it from the van, I'm still not okay with that.
Okay, so I speak on that.
I have an issue.
All right, well, I don't have an issue with that. I think, I have a problem with saying, people can't drive in here and they just stay in their cars to see. I mean, I understand the curiosity, and I feel, for example, I've said this before here, that when, title crews exist in the Polo, if that community closed us off, I wouldn't have been able to go down there. And I had very ill feelings for people who lived in vacation lots who couldn't go there because there's a gate there. And that I could go down there and partake in that experience, made me, I enjoyed it, I appreciated that. And obviously I don't want tourists, all over the place and not walking on the wall. I can see a safety issue. But I don't personally have a problem with if someone here, I might be speaking out of turn here, but like, for example, Chris Burmeister was bought two lots that front the lumber, and he wants to have tour companies come in there and you know, to see the lot from the property. I'm not gonna say we're not allowed to do that.
That's private property.
Right.
Okay,
So you're just saying, no tour companies can come into their lot, that's what I heard you.
No, I said I'm against tour companies that are driving on the roads, parking on the roads, causing safety.
Okay, but I
Yeah,
can't
it's
park on
private
the road,
property.
right, I thank you, that's what I did.
Okay, we have 2 no's, 1 further information needed.
Oh, yeah, further information is 2 completely different subjects. One is us giving sanction or forbidding a tour company to come in is completely outside of our purview. The can of worms, using that term very lightly, that we would open up is that by giving one permission, that we would be either implicitly excluding the other companies, or we would stand open for lawsuits from every other tour company that they should be receiving the same permission. So, does anybody else have a comment on it? So I'd like to make a motion. Go ahead, Cory.
So, and maybe I also talk to this because I also want to sponsor a group coming down to the university here who wants to explore lava. So, I mean, I think it's a sort of gray area between the tour company and people coming down and doing research.
Well, no, they're coming for insurance, they're going to be private property.
Is coming, we have permission with 3 individuals to visit their house and stand on their land, and they are keen on talking to scientists, the people who want, so it's different than a band coming.
Okay, and so I make a motion that we as the board neither grant nor deny any permission based upon the request letter that we got. And a vote by hand. Okay, so 4 and opposed. Okay, so.
So the motion is the LCA board will neither grant nor deny, which is.
So are they gonna write this in?
Put it in okay,
Just a quick thing, can you give us information as to the status of the Visitor Management Committee? I signed up for that and never heard anything about it.
Is that further along on this agenda? No, actually, that's on the agenda for the Thursday meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks, though.
Thank you.
Okay, we had, yeah, we did. 4 votes for and 1 abstention. The board was going to, had suggested the wisdom of doing informal exit interviews with the 3, with Greg Armstrong, Mark Hanio, and Jay Trabowski. To the best of my knowledge, that hasn't moved forward at all. Has anybody moved forward in that? By the way, the reason we were, my impression was the reason we were doing that was to kind of learn where the keys were kept, and there was a lot of nuts and bolts things that have been a bit of an interesting process of a brand new board having to figure out how to turn on the copier. And I'm being a little facetious, but I mean most literally. There's been some real challenges as far as the just how things happen, and so anyway, I think and so how would you guys feel about we simply suspend that process? I feel like our board has really gotten our feet on the ground pretty good now, and that I'm not sure that any kind of a formal request for interview is necessary at this point. Anybody have any other feelings about it?
I thank Jay for coming to the meetings.
Yes.
I wouldn't call it a formal interview, but I would like to have time with Mark one day. We would like to have a lot of time with Greg one day, just on one-on-one. If I have to run into him, I don't know how to get hold of him. Because the former board does have a lot of valuable information to it. So we want to keep that communication open, then you can come
Well, okay, Rod, based on what you said, how about if we change it to that it will take place informally by board members as they feel the need to do it? Okay? Okay, now, we need to vote on that. I don't think so. The status of the bylaw changes by the current board of directors. So what I did was, we had received several communications for interpretations of various articles of the bylaws. I submitted one article in particular which had to do with changing the bylaws to our current attorney, Lincoln Ashita. He got back to all of us and said, bluntly stated, it is very poorly written. This is exact feeling. He said it was lifted as a boilerplate document from other bylaws of other organizations. By the way, for those of you who don't know, this year is the 50th anniversary year of the Leilani estates.
Wow.
So it was dumped onto bylaws from another document 50 years ago. So I asked Lincoln to turn it into what's called plain speak. So for those of you who don't know, there are many states now in the United States that require more and more legal documents to take the form of plain speak. Many sales contracts now take that form, that you're not allowed to have any wheretofores and here's I buys in the statement. And so I propose to the board that we begin the process of a complete rewrite of the bylaws, not in their intent, but in a legal interpretation into plain speak, so that the community and I, for one, understands what I'm reading. He made a great clarification on that subject, and I have that for anybody who wants to see it, of course. It's a bit lengthy again, but I'm more than happy to share it with anyone. But so I make a motion that as bylaw questions come up, we ask for a rewrite to plain speak by our attorney.
I have a question. You're just talking about bylaws, you're not talking about the articles of incorporation, you're not talking about the CCNRs?
Correct.
So why don't we have all the bylaws?
Well, there'll be some cost involved, of course. Some of them are much more clear than others. So some of them are very straightforward, others are less so. And so one suggestion by Lincoln was, why doesn't he make a suggestion to us which ones fall in that category of poorly written?
Another concern. Do those bylaw changes require the 75% vote?
No, the bylaw, no, it's just simply a rewrite of something that already exists by a qualified legal counsel.
And the bylaws, I believe, are determined by the vote of the board.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so I make a motion that we create a separate standalone document, which will be the rewrite of the bylaws as plain speak. It will not replace the current legal document that we are required to keep in place, but essentially have an addendum to it, which will be the same articles rewritten into plain speak, and obviously make that available to the entire community.
So I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Are we going to have the group of people rewrite the bylaws, or are we paying a lawyer?
No, we have to pay a lawyer to do it. It has to be done by a legal counsel.
Honestly, I would take it one step further and make it too confusing having two sets of bylaws. If they're rewritten, if we can do it, I would just vote to take those changes into the bylaws. And make them their own one document.
Yeah, what if we were to wait to get the rewrite?
Yeah, absolutely.
Look it all over and then we could act that as a separate motion.
That would make more sense.
Okay.
Than having two documents.
Okay. Rod, to answer, to respond to what you said, my strong feeling is that if we did let a group of people do it, it would create an even greater problem, because we have people who aren't lawyers trying to act as lawyers. And so unfortunately, it will involve expense. But I think that the confusion in the bylaws have been grounds for a lot of unnecessary dialogue and sometimes heated dialogue. And I think that it would be money very well spent to make the community feel like they understood.
So just a minute of a completion date?
Well,
Considering we're just voting on that now.
yeah. But I will add to you that I'll also add to the motion that we submit the entire bylaws to Lincoln Ishida, which by the way he already has, and that he essentially lists the order that he thinks it should happen in along with the potential budget for doing it, and then we act based upon his recommendation, or we again take votes based upon the.
Second now.
Okay, so Robert, you okay, so a show of hands to begin the process of turning the bylaws into understandable English. Okay, so that's unanimously passed. Policies, familiarization, and review status. Cheryl, why don't you run with that to start?
Well, we got some of the binders that had the policies that were supposedly passed and implemented by the board. And we've been going through them trying to verify that they were actually ever voted on by the board. And I took a stack of them and started going through the minutes for the last 5 years. And it appears that quite a few of them never were actually voted on by the board of directors. So we're going to have to probably go through the majority of all of those and figure out if we still want them to be policies or not. And then they're going to probably be rewritten a little bit and voted on again. Because right now they don't look like legal policies to the board.
Well, and also just adding to that, a fair number of those policies predate Hawaii 421J, which we are now bound by with absolutely no wiggle room whatsoever. And so, by definition, any policy that is in conflict with 421J would be either changed to come into compliance with it, or it would simply be eliminated. By the way, so it doesn't sound as bad. I mean, no. So it doesn't. Many of those policies were raising the dues, or I mean, dozens of them were very benign things that had very little. A lot of them are obsolete because the first one raised the dues from $15 a year to $17 a year, and so that one's obviously long since water under the bridge. So.
But there were a few doozies.
Yeah, there were. Yeah, I'll absolutely concur with Cheryl that the board has some sincere concerns about some of the policies that exist from the past as to their viability, their legality, and the wisdom of going forward with them. Anybody else have anything on that?
So we move on.
Okay, so the Lower Malama terminus we've already talked about. The Miley Street speed bumps. Alice, why don't you take that one? Or Rod, Allison Rod.
Rod has the numbers, but the message I have is that the speed bumps were going to be much more expensive than we first discussed. But I haven't seen how many different companies have submitted bids. I think there's only one. Is that right?
Correct.
Yeah. And it sounds to me like a big mistake. They said that it was going to cost $33,000 to put in speed bumps on Miley. There's something wrong with that. So.
Speed bumps or the rebuild the road?
It's cheaper to rebuild the road. Well, so I have not been able to get Mark Palomino to get back with me. He's the one that submitted it, right? He submitted that.
He talked to Watkins Paving.
Right. So either that's a mistake with Watkins, or we just need to find a different provider, because I don't want to shut the door on it without investigating, real options. When my husband heard the number, he said, I can put in speed bumps. Much cheaper than that. You started in on the, what it would take, but, the Miley Street people are willing to, I haven't talked to them about pitching in, but they certainly are willing to, give muscle power to this, and you honestly really want to go out and do it, so, but, because these bumps don't look like, they're worth, $2,500 that we have out here in Southern Washington.
And at the previous board meeting, Mark Camillo did say that he knew people who could do it for $400. So I think we should continue to pursue him for that.
So I'm sorry to say it's unresolved. Yeah.
Is anybody talking to Hawaii Volcano Observatory people? They keep measuring the road, and we don't want to put speed bumps if they're going to be, it'll mess up their measurements.
Well, they've already put the dots down where the bumps should go, and they carefully avoided the cracks on mine.
Great, good.
Three
Just
cracks,
wanted to make sure.
so they're not anywhere near those.
Also, just so it's of the record, the previous board to ours voted to approve the speed bump, so we're still moving forward on that approval. And so we're simply doing the necessary legwork.
The other thing, sorry.
As to your question about HVO, I have spoken with Tina about it, and she's actually offered to come down and do an assessment.
Oh, great, that'd be perfect. That's necessary before we do anything.
The other thing is that we initially talked about 4 speed bumps. That's what the board was thinking. And Mark talked to the provider, and he said that the bumps would be too far apart to actually work if there was only 4 on all of Miley Street, which is 3,000 feet long, and it might be 3,200 feet long. And so they would need to be 400 feet apart. But then the estimate was for 14, which is way more than even the 400-foot thing required. So I think there's a miscommunication with the provider.
Okay. So should we just table that until we have more information?
I want to make sure everybody understands. There is a Leilani Community Association policy for speed humps, and in that policy, we do not pay for them. The residents have to. So
that was actually voted on by the previous board to make an exception. If we want to go back to that, we would have to rescind that vote and then take a new vote. Which, by the way, is very much within our ability. This speaks a little bit to the speed bumps, but a little bit to how wonderful things are when they go right. Some of you are aware of the fact that a group from UH Hilo and HVO came and walked up to the top of Fissure 8. They did it without contacting anybody in the community. Several people sent objections to me that how dare they do that. Here's a letter I got back. I'm not going to read the whole thing. Dear Mr. Andrews, please accept my heartfelt apology for our recent unpermitted visit to Fissure 8. This was definitely an oversight on my part. I ignored the protocol, and we did not coordinate it with HVO. We take full responsibility for the mistake and assure you that going forward, permissions will always be secured from the residents and the organization of Leilani. It goes on for 3 more paragraphs and signs Darcy Stephens, educational specialist, UH Hilo. And so I think that really speaks legions about how when people are doing things right, that that's how well it works. And out of that, I asked Tina to come and survey our roads and to do us a favor. And she said, sounds like it's only fair we kind of step on you guys once, so we owe you a favor. Okay. If you wanted to talk about the LCA fee policy for exempt properties.
I would just suggesting that for 2020, the log covered lots stay as is, with the exception of that they're occupied homes, that people are able to live there, and it's an occupied home, that they should pay the fees.
And then did you also, I think in an email, I think you talked about too, about if the lots transfer somebody.
Oh, yeah, and if anybody has purchased, whether it's lava cover or not, since the eruption, they knew exactly what they were purchasing and what they were buying into, they should, at that point, be responsible for the first.
To my knowledge, I don't think there are any livable homes that have the fee says on there.
Yeah,
There's a couple popping up on the one that hey, somebody's really into, look at you to get access to before, and that's,
Okay.
so there are some.
Okay, this is new ones, all right, gotcha.
what the previous board voted was that the payment of dues by everyone whose lots were inundated by lava be on a completely voluntary basis, and that policy was put in place for 1 year. So what he's speaking to is that we'll have to revisit that after 1 year. And so, are you okay with us making note of that and acting a little closer to the end of the term? It's probably gonna get more complicated.
Oh, I'm
Sure
sure.
goes on.
Any board input on that?
Yeah, you say inundated, yet there's some properties where the cracks are so big, the property's probably never be buildable.
And
Those are always-
those properties are also included in the building term.
What about your guys' input? What are your thoughts on something like that? For purchasing after the eruption, you knew what they were getting? Pro, anti, yes?
I think the fees are a big deal as far as road maintenance, so I have a question about having a fee when they don't have a road. If they have a road, I think the fee is absolute, a must, but if there's no road and there's no movement by LCA to restore the road, I have questions as to the validity of charging those people a fee.
$110 isn't just for roads, it's just facility, electric, internet, facilities here, everything.
Keith, the way I'm hearing what you're saying is, and by the way, I agree with what you said. If someone buys a lot, knowing full well that it's covered by lava, it would be reason to believe that they have some intention of at some point doing something with that lot. And therefore, their use of the roads to access that property, I think, would be where the road issue would come into play.
When we bought our property in Leilani, we were told in escrow that we were mandatory dues. This didn't change with someone buys it covered with lava, right? They're still notified that they are liable
That's just
for
the
fees.
previous board voted if it was covered, not which I'm fine with that.
Sure.
If anybody new going forward that purchased it.
And I'm saying when they bought new, knowing that it's covered, they still within their mortgage, I mean their
Oh, now
escrow
I don't-
said,
In
so it's already in there.
When you buy a property here, the seller has to give a disclosure, and that disclosure tells if you have HOA dues in there. And then also in your purchase contract, they're gonna write in there that you do have dues in the money estates.
Perfect, thank you so much.
Because there's no reference policy saying, oh wait, it's covered, I don't have to pay. So that's why it would be.
And most real estate agents, and I'm putting in Q1, that all the information that you are aware that this property has been covered by lava, full disclosure. So there's
And that may be
disclosure.
something that the board needs to do as a statement, blanket statement, and notice in the paper, all people that purchase in Leilani will be, from here on, whether it's covered or not, subject to dues. I mean, it has to be noticed to the public or something like that.
Well, again, and my understanding, and I'll defer to Jay actually on this, my understanding is the Leilani Association did not relieve anybody of those dues. Those dues theoretically are still an item. We simply, for a period of 1 year, said that we would make that voluntary simply for those homes that were either unlivable or lots of, is that correct, Jay?
Just a point, it wasn't defined explicitly. The intent, as I recall, was that they would not be paying dues in 2019, and never going to be required to pay for 2019.
But by their own choice, they could not pay the dues, and that would not show as a debt. It wouldn't
Correct.
pay
Yes.
any liability.
Right.
Okay. You good with that?
Yeah, we'll do it as we get closer to news. Let's move on.
Okay, we only have 2 items left. Rod, audit and banking progress.
Finally got all the signature cards straightened out, so there's a couple different ways to sign checks to get paid. Had some questions on the amount of reserves for an organization our big. I thought they were a little high, but for what we have, they might be a little low. So, I don't know, somebody planned for what we couldn't plan for. I did question to the banks about the insurance on the accounts, and I'm going to work on that with them. And no progress on an audit. We're looking at doing an internal audit, or do we bring somebody in from the outside for an audit, which costs money.
Okay.
So Ron, that would, could you speak more about reserves and status and what else?
Well, I think if you add up what we have a little over $400,000. It seems like an awful lot, not having had the event. So I got to figure out a way to compare us to local communities and what they have as reserve, what is an expected or required reserve for an organization of our size. I don't want to carry an extra $100,000 in the bank of your money. That money could go back into the community, could do this, could do that. But what the actual best size is, I don't know yet. I'm still working on that.
Okay, I'll get you in there. So, Rod, there's been, there's a formal document called the Reserve Report. So, in my research in 50 years, the Leilani Community Association has never done a reserve report. It's done all over the world for homeowners and condominium associations to very carefully and expertly say how much money should be held purely in reserve versus how much should be seen as working capital for improvements or other things. So
I like the reserve report idea. I don't know if somebody internal like myself should do that. I think it's something probably should be contracted out. But you know, I'm tight with the money, so it's your money.
My question was, are you gonna prepare a budget? Are we gonna know at some former future meeting, are we gonna have a budget so we know what monthly expenses are going up for salaries and so on and so forth?
We basically have that, most of it, that information has not been revealed in detail. Kim does an excellent job in the office here of keeping track of things. It's one of the things I want to meet with Greg Armstrong about. He knows details.
in my research, no, there is no budget, and hasn't been one for a while. One of the things that we've talked about is the absolute need for a budget to run an organization, and possibly the need for possibly the need also for a cash flow report to be able to predict expenses moving forward. And that's something that Rod and I also have talked about.
Also, we need a new assessment of what our value is, which hasn't been done. Appraisal, I guess.
Of property.
Of-
Commonly owned property?
Yeah, of LCH market, yeah. Because that will impact insurance rates. And, also, now that we've had an eruption, we have less than we used to have. What is it that also the value that we still have?
So, you say the property assessment of the LCA property or?
Yes.
LCA assets.
LCA assets, yes.
Okay,
Yeah, I'm listening for you. I'm not here. I would like to see at the end of the month what a line item for every expense. Eventually, once you get what was that? I do that for very small actually.
our goal is to post that monthly on the LCA website.
Tell you our salaries.
Pardon? I know. Thank you.
I was going to make a motion to triple it.
That's the more lawsuit you get money back.
But the next agenda item is, it says $15,000 grant to Ashley Kirkowitz. I think that's wishful thinking on her part. It's actually from. Ashley Kirkowitz has secured for the Leilani Community Station a $15,000 grant that came out of disaster funding from the county that has been earmarked specifically for safety and security enhancement. I'm in the process of going through, dotting some I's and crossing some T's to actually get that money. I had to fill out a few forms, but I'm being assured by Ashley that the money is, once we just do those very routine things, that the money will be ours, and then we'll, as a board, we'll determine how those monies could be best used to benefit the community. Okay, the last agenda item for the open session is the roads and disaster funding update. Robin Stetson and graciously offered to form a task force that would pursue a disaster funding and try to determine some costs involved with the roads, so I'll just let Robin take that.
Glad I have these notes. So, yes, the board of directors appointed a task force. There are 3 of us on the task force: myself, Bob Spencer, our director, Cheryl Cow, and Jake Bukowski, our former president of the board. And I'm going to be giving a brief report at the next board meeting on what we found out so far. We're just 2.5, 3 weeks old. But this morning, the task force wants to present a draft of a letter to the board and to those of you attending, which has been a collaborative effort between the task force and our president, Andy Andrews. And so basically, we propose to contact all of our county government officials, from Governor Ige down to our county council. We also are going to include the civil defense, our local police, our local fire department, and also on the list is the action committee, which works with communities to implement the Puna community development. In the letter, we ask the representatives to share their experience and help LCA get funding. So I'm going to pass that around, and you guys take a look at it. Please give us your feedback. One other thing I want to mention before I pass it around is I'd like to give the board a heads up if the letter is approved, or when it is approved. Something that might affect the mail date is that in my conversation so far, the people I talk to want specifics, and they want to write up front. They want to know, how much funding LCA is looking for, what specifically they need it for. In the case of roads, I'm asked how many miles of road repair LCA has. So, if I'm a contact person, I will need the board to supply me with what they would like me to say.
Who did that question come from?
I've been speaking with several people involved in the county, in the past and the present.
Who were they?
So, Jan, Sullivan, who spoke to me at night, who is affiliated with the Vacation Land Board of Directors. But she gave us a lot of information concerning seeking funding, because she's just been down that road, and she's very thorough.
The letter's pretty short. Would you mind reading? Is it all right? It's a very short letter. Would you mind reading it? Is that all right with everybody? Just while Rob is doing that, I'm reading an excerpt from Joyce and Buenaventura's newest newsletter, just the opening paragraph. I am happy to announce that my lava recovery bill has been signed into law. This bill provides $60 million to the County of Hawaii for relief, recovery, mitigation, and assistance for disaster damage and losses caused by the Kilauea eruption and hurricane land, in addition to the $22 million already provided for by the governor. So what this letter addresses is the fact that there's $82 million out there, and so how do we get some?
Yeah, and I do have the information pertaining to that I can tell you at the next meeting. So the letter is, Leilani Estates is rebuilding, and we need your help. Our community is committed to being stronger and healthier than ever before, following the destruction and loss due to last year's eruption. We have residents and leaders who are working tirelessly right now to restore the safety, infrastructure, and beauty that are the proud hallmarks of Leilani Estates. We still have lots of work ahead of us. Selfless community volunteers have thwarted a rise in crime, enabled temporary road repairs, and formed committees and task forces that will effectively tackle all that remains ahead. What we lack is sufficient funding to make all of this happen. That is why we need your help. We have read of the many millions of federal, state, and county dollars that have been secured for disaster recovery. Thank you so very much for your part in this process. And now, as our representative, help us secure our fair share of this funding commensurate to our incredible loss and recovery needs. Tell us, how do we ensure our consideration and eligibility for assistance, and how will the allocations be administered? We invite you to meet with our community to understand what has been accomplished and see for yourself what remains to be done. We will contact you within the next few days to schedule an appointment. Expect a call from our task force contact, Robin Stetson, and my phone number. You may also contact our LCA board president, Andy Andrews, at signed respectfully, and Andy's signature followed by the board of directors, and my signature as contact followed by the members of the task force.
It's a good start.
So what Robin is seeking is a board approval to send out that letter. So it's one of the open discussion on that.
So, I hear your point about one from before that, I think, her name is Jan told you specifics. So, I think I think you probably need to send a letter out, but that we need to decide what actually do we want to see happen. Besides the repair of these roads here that are currently somewhat damaged.
That's correct.
Right, so we need to decide, do we want to open up the road to, apply for stuff like that? That's a major policy decision.
This doesn't address that at all.
Well,
A couple of things that maybe would happen would be that the board would formulate a couple of different scenarios, or they could just start by suggesting some flat rate amount and just see how far that gets you. Say, well, we'd like to initially apply for $1 million or support, and then, just so they have some idea. And even though the input I've been getting is from conversations, I think if you talk to anybody in a grant program, they're gonna ask you right off the bat, the facts.
So when we did the transparency letter to get the, what was it called?
Yeah.
When-
Curfew.
Curfew, when we had to be home by 6 o'clock. What we did was we sent out that letter to 23 people, probably the same people. 18 of them ignored it. 5 of them acknowledged it, and 2 of them got it done without any further discussion. It got done in 2 hours by somebody who made the right phone call to the right person, and that person was of a much higher rank than the person that they called. I think a lot of the thinking is specifics are important, but I don't think there's any ambiguity about the fact that receiving funding money would be of a great benefit to Leilani Estates at this point in time. So my thought, my hope is that Tulsi Gabbard or Governor Ige or Brian Schatz or someone else respond to this and say, yep, we want to help, tell us what you need. And then at that point, we will have a champion who has real authority and power. And at that point, we can tell them specifically what we could help, what we would need help with.
I've done this a couple times, and we've got a $640,000 fund in the state right now that we're drawing from. What I find they like best, you first ask for planning and development money to figure out what you need, right? Then you can hire professionals to come in and survey the whole thing, right? And tell you what you need. Whether they have certificates, I mean, we are just citizens. We don't really know what we need.
I'll dispute that.
Right, to a point. Well, I know, what we don't, you understand, it's like a certified survey of our needs, not our wants, of our needs, then we can add our wants onto it. But that's going to be $250,000 just to do the survey to figure out what we need.
I think that the sentiment of the letter is exactly,
perfect.
Yes.
is exactly following what you said. Why don't we reach out first to the professionals who have huge staffs and huge knowledge and huge access to resources and say to them, how do we start this process? What is step 1? And how can you help us to enable that process? I think that's all that this letter addresses.
And another thing that I feel that is the hook is we've got to say how many miles of road we have covered. I mean, you've got to have something that hooks them in to relate to it. We have X number of miles of roads that are covered. You know, that in itself gets you in it. But to say we have needs is fine, but I think we do have to leave something in there that gets the hook. I mean, I'd love to write and say, hey, I want a check, but what's that check going for? You know, why? You need the hook.
When Joyce and Buenaventura and Ige asked for money, they actually didn't specify it. They simply went to the United States Congress and said, we need relief, what can you allocate us? And the Congress wrote a bill that allocated $60 million without any specificity at all, simply on the simple acknowledgement that it was a disaster area and would require funding implicitly. So I think that adding the details is step 2, not step 1.
Exactly. But there are a lot of people out there asking for this money, and a big chunk of this money went to cover county costs, employees, not to go directly to the people. This was to cover costs. That's a huge amount that was taken by it.
Yeah, but I think it's a good letter.
Yeah, I do too.
Any other comments?
I would suggest we need to establish whether we're going to restore any of the inundated streets also as part of this up front. Because we already on a preliminary basis another 6,900 feet approximately of pavement over the cracks and the various areas that would need to be done, but that doesn't include opening any of the streets out on the inundation, which frankly doesn't make a whole lot of sense because I don't know that the county would permit any building on it.
Yeah.
I think your point's really well taken, but I think it's a couple of steps ahead of this process.
True.
So
But in other words, I guess my point is that we already know a lot of the numbers.
Right.
I can actually give you within a few inches of how many feet of road have been covered, so.
So I would just suggest, given Steve's point, that just perhaps to mention specifically, the first step will be, to hire professionals to help us in planning and development, and then from there we'll go on to further steps. Right, but I would identify that as the first step in the letter.
And I disagree with that. I think that our first step should be ask the legislators how to begin the process, not, my concern is putting any specificity into it and actually exclude us from funding rather than including us in funding. I think we need an answer back from them of here's step one, or let's meet. I mean, my fantasy is that, not I shouldn't say it. My hope.
Go for it.
My hope is